Hi guys, in this week's Laser Talk we'll be talking a little bit about Pink Cadillac, trying to keep with the trend of movies that I've never seen before and giving movies and actors a shot that I don't necessarily like. I did that before with the 007 movies. I'm going to watch a couple more of those this week, hopefully. I have a little bit of time in the evenings. And another actor that I've never been a big fan of, wanted to give this a shot. This movie stars Clint Eastwood and Bernadette Peters. And I've never really liked Clint Eastwood, but I always just assumed that was because I don't really like westerns, and I've never seen him in a non-western before this movie. And after watching this, I'm still not a big fan of Clint Eastwood. Overall, it was a half-decent watch. This is a movie that you happen to catch on TV one night, Netflix, I don't know if it's on Netflix, whatever, or if you see this disc sitting around for the under $5 club here, it's not a bad movie, it's just fairly mediocre overall. It stars Bernadette Peters as a down-on-her-luck young mother whose husband keeps getting riled up in all these schemes that leave them practically penniless, living in a trailer park, and the only thing they really have its value is his pink Cadillac. He gets involved with a money laundering scheme and a fake money printing scheme with a white supremacist group, and she ends up taking the fall for them in a court case when the police discover some money that they've laundered in their trailer, and she ends up skipping out on bail, trying to just leave this life behind and say, I'm just absolutely done with this, by stealing her husband's Cadillac. She gets embroiled in the whole mess when the white supremacist group comes after her. She didn't realize that a lot of their money that they took, real funds, is in the trunk of the Cadillac. She left without knowing that, so now they're after her, plus Clint Eastwood's character who plays a bounty hunter who's after her because she skipped bail. And they end up, the white supremacist group and her husband get a hold of her baby, and this whole sort of back and forth chase with the money and everything gets involved. And overall, it just feels like a movie that just doesn't quite work. It has some humorous moments, but they're not quite. They're more tongue-in-cheek. I don't think I ever laughed out loud. A lot of the action feels okay, but a little subdued. And a lot of the problems I have were, Bernadette Peters, I think, did a pretty good job with the role she was given. I think she did a great acting performance given the confines of the script. I think overall, she did a good job, but the character that she was playing just wasn't all that engaging. So for what she was given, she did a good job, but overall just wasn't spectacular. And to me, Clint Eastwood's performance throughout the whole thing felt like an actor who wasn't quite comfortable in his role, felt like he wasn't quite into it, but it was one where, from having seen him in a couple other movies, even though I didn't genuinely like the movies, those compared to this, you can even tell throughout this performance that it's someone who's a better actor than the performance that he's giving in this movie. He's just doesn't quite feel it in this movie. He's not quite into it. Maybe it's the character doesn't quite mesh well with the performance he wants to give. It just kind of has that awkwardness throughout the whole movie, and I think in some ways that kills it a little bit when one of your two main characters just doesn't quite fit perfectly into the role. That's a problem in itself, and then you have this forced coming together of Clint Eastwood's character and Bernadette Peters' character. I'm not giving anything away by telling this because you can tell within the first couple minutes that's the eventual plot here, that they're going to end up together and they're going to be the stereotypical we're at odds with each other, we can't stand each other, and before the end of the movie we're absolutely passionately in love, and this whole thing. And it feels very forced with these two characters and just doesn't mesh well. They don't work too well together. The scenes where they are separate, I think, are a little more even. When they do come together, I think Bernadette Peters outshines Clint Eastwood a little bit in the movie, but not saying much because her character is still not that great. So overall, it's an okay, semi-entertaining movie if you see it for free or for cheap, but one I wouldn't particularly look out for. It's alright. It just isn't one that I feel like maybe I'll watch it one more time down the road, years from now. The other problem that I have is the white supremacist group. In all of their scenes, and especially in the action scenes towards the very end, it would have worked fairly well, even though I wasn't quite into the main characters. It would have worked well, and I think I would have felt more for them if they came across as menacing. But they didn't. They came off as just kind of cheesy and goofy, and they never really felt like a true threat. And I think especially in the action scenes towards the end, it would have been much more dynamic, and I would have felt more for the plight of the main characters if the characters that they were against, if these white supremacist groups were truly menacing and threatening, and they just weren't. And I think that's another element that didn't quite click. And that's pretty much this whole movie. That's what I'll really end with here, is this whole movie is everything about it is okay. I don't think there's anything about it that's truly terrible, but everything is just kind of, it's not quite there. Everything just doesn't quite come together. You have a fairly good idea or a fairly good scene that's like, this is alright, but it just doesn't really bring its A game ever. The whole movie, I think, is just, it just kind of goes one of those just kind of mediocre, alright, saw it on a Saturday afternoon one time, I kind of remember that movie, it was okay. So overall, if you are a big fan of Clint Eastwood, I'd say, from my personal experience, stick with westerns if you like those. Bernadette Peters, again, I do tend to enjoy her performances, and I do think she's a little bit better in this. If you're a fan of either of them, I'd check it out and just see if you do enjoy it. Because like I said, it's not a terrible movie. It's just kind of one of those okay, catch them on cable TV in the 90s type movies, you know what I mean? Just on a lazy Saturday afternoon, and you never hear from it again. That type of movie, it's alright. So Pink Cadillac on LaserDisc. Okay action, okay performances, okay humor. Not a bad movie, just very okay.